Today's Big Stat is brought to you by Walgreens. The Penn State football team starts the year ranked 8th in the country, according to the Associated Press preseason poll, despite some key departures in the offseason. A total of 8 former Nittany Lions were selected in the 2024 NFL Draft, including Chop Robinson, picked up in the first round, Olu Fashanu, another first-round selection. Still a very bright season ahead for Penn State. And now we welcome in Audrey Snyder, the Penn State beat writer for The Athletic. Audrey, great to see you. Very excited to talk some Penn State football. How's it going?
It's going well. It's hard to believe we're already in mid-August, right?
I know. At stores, they're already selling Halloween paraphernalia. Like, what is that about?
Absolutely insane. Insane.
That it is. We've been talking a lot about quarterbacks here on today's show, so let's start with Penn State QB Drew Aller. Coming off what was a good 2023 campaign, finished with a really impressive touchdown to interception ratio, right about a 60% completion percentage. How does he elevate now coming in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, this is an offense with a new OC and Andy Kotelnicki, and they need to be explosive. That was kind of the thing last year. You look at it and you point out the 2 interceptions, but you can also kind of point to, was Penn State too conservative and too risk-averse, with not wanting to push the ball down the field? And, so much of this season is going to hinge on this offense and taking one of the least explosive offenses in the country last year and trying to make it one of the most explosive. I mean, a lot is on Drew Aller's shoulders. There's a lot of talent to work with, but I'm a little bit more curious about the scheme that they're going to run and just how creative Andy Kotelnicki gets with Aller, and also with backup quarterback Beau Pribula, because I think he could be a fun little chess piece for Penn State.
It's always an interesting balance to strike between taking care of the football and then taking risks and finding those big explosive plays. Another big question mark for this offense is who exactly is Aller going to be targeting? The wide receiving core is certainly the subject of a lot of scrutiny back in 2023. Looking at this receiving core, who do you expect to step up? And do you think that Julian Fleming, the Ohio State transfer, could be the missing piece?
I think no doubt Fleming's going to be one of their better receivers, but I think Trey Wallace is probably going to be their top guy. I mean, this is somebody that you look at last year and you say, we heard so much about, the offense isn't as explosive because Trey's hurt, right? Again, just because he hasn't stayed healthy, I think there's a lot of intrigue of what Wallace can do when he is healthy. But I definitely think Fleming's going to factor in. I mean, the 2 players that Penn State has wanted to highlight this camp, publicly at least with the media, has been Trey Wallace and Liam Clifford. So you have those 2. I still think absolutely Julian Fleming helps. You look at his size. I mean, they need a big body to block on the perimeter, but I think he can absolutely do more than that, right? And Fleming understands what's kind of at stake for him, too. I mean, he came here for a purpose. He didn't come here to be a depth piece, right? This is his last go-around of college football, and they're going to need a bunch of guys. I mean, I would think in my head kind of that top pecking order would be Trey Wallace, probably Julian Fleming, then Liam Clifford, somewhere along that line. But the interesting thing is they do have a lot of depth at tight end, so I think Tyler Warren, their tight end, can help kind of mitigate some of these needs as this receiving core tries to sort itself out.
You already mentioned this offense should look very different under first-year offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. What do you expect the biggest change to be?
I think just the creativity. I mean, there were so many opportunities last year where the play calling was just baffling. I mean, you'd look at it and you'd say, okay, they had a 9-yard run. You're faced with second and short, and then they'd start trying to do some gadget plays or, try to get reserve receivers involved. Like, there are a lot of moments from last year that just really stood out as just how disjointed the offense was. But I think Andy understands that he has to work to the strengths of this personnel. And yes, every offensive coordinator is going to say that, but you have to actually be able to do it. And I think that's something where that's his track record, right? He did it at Kansas. We've seen him do it with less talent before at previous stops. Like, pretty much he's known for his creativity, but also his willingness to work with the talent that they have. And that's why I mentioned backup quarterback Beau Pribula earlier, right? This is one of their best, most speedy guys, so they want to find a way to get that athleticism on the field. And Kotelnicki said it pretty much point blank. If you are one of the best 11 players, he's going to find a way to get you on the field. So I think that part is exciting, but I also think it's a matter of understand on paper you've got a lot of talent. Don't try to overthink things. Rely on Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Trust your quarterback. be able to move the ball down the field, set up those shot plays with some complementary plays. And I think he's willing to do that for sure.
Despite losing a number of players to the NFL draft, there's no doubt there's talent on both sides of the ball on this Penn State roster. Going to the defensive side, first-year defensive coordinator Tom Allen looking to make his mark. How have you seen him start to develop some of those relationships with his players, and what do you expect to see schematically from Allen's defense?
Yeah, Tom Allen is one of those guys that you always hear about relationships and how he prides himself on it. Before they even hit the practice field this year, his voice was already shredded because he's just that vocal. But one of the interesting things with Allen that he's spoken about is that he's really happy to be back, as a DC, that he's really back studying an insane amount of film, just something that he couldn't do as a head coach because you have all these other things on your plate and all these other responsibilities. But yeah, he's someone that players have said stands out to them because he genuinely cares. And that's something that they said, like, you see Tom Allen, he wants to know how you are, but not just how you're doing with football, but how you're doing with life. And he wants to give you a hug and those kinds of things. So that's great. But also, he inherited an insanely talented defense, and Abdul Carter is certainly going to be one of those big pieces. Going to play defensive end, also going to move around, play some linebacker as well. But that is one of the premier defensive players in all of college football. So Tom Allen inherits a lot. I also think safety KJ Winston is somebody that maybe nationally we're not talking enough about because I think he's going to have a really nice year as well.
All right, well, Audrey Snyder, thank you so much. High expectations out there in Happy Valley. Enjoy maybe the quiet before the storm of the college football season. I don't know, since you're enthralled in training camp. But once again, we appreciate you stopping by.
You got it. Take care.
Another program where expectations are sky high this season is the Penn State Nittany Lions, and maybe the program that will benefit the most from the expanded college football playoff format. Going to be very interesting to see exactly how this offense looks under brand new offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. We were just talking about Drew Aller, who came in and had a very good 2023 season, but now you're still working with a new OC. You got to develop that relationship. What are you expecting to see week one from this Penn State offense and Aller?
I got a chance to talk to James Franklin in Indianapolis at Big Ten Football Media Days, and I really made a comparison between James Franklin and Drew Aller because when you're the head coach at Penn State, there are immense expectations for high-level winning. So, yes, a double-digit win season. Fans kind of yawn at that a little bit. A quarterback who was setting records for consecutive attempts without an interception. Fans yawning at that because you're not seeing the deep ball. You weren't seeing the explosive pass play.
Plays.
On the whole, though, now for year two in Drew Aller, while expectations are honestly a little bit more muted this year for the offense as a whole, in some ways the team as a whole for Penn State, I still believe they're going to be right there in the thick of the championship conversation, and part of it is just the development that's anticipated for Drew Aller as a second-year starter as opposed to a first. And Andy Kotelnicki, you mentioned that name. I mean, he's thought of as one of the better offensive minds, like young offensive minds in the game. What he did at Kansas, very creative. And there's some new weaponry that they're going to have access to now.
That there is. I like that little tease ahead because Julian Fleming is joining this wide receiving core. You also bring back your number 2 wideout in Harrison Wallace, who spent some of last season injured. Fleming, though, a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, really had to wait his turn and sit behind a ton of talent at Ohio State. Can he step up and be your number 1 option? I
know you were just talking to Audrey Snyder about it, and as I've talked to everyone in State College, it does strike me that Julian Fleming, a guy who was at one point the number 1 recruit in the country coming out of high school, and yes, things never really panned out for him at an exceptional level in Columbus during his Ohio State career. But just like you mentioned, there were so many other talented wideouts that were there, first-round picks who were getting their opportunity. For Julian Fleming, this is essentially his last best chance. And the best part about it is that he'll be expected to be one of the main cogs in this passing attack. They don't have the same type of weaponry in State College that he had to sort of sit behind or work alongside of in Columbus. There should be an enhanced role, a volume role for Julian Fleming in this offense. And to me, he is one of the main pieces that could end up shaping the Big Ten championship picture because Penn State's defense will help them win a bunch of games. Penn State's talent at running back will have them in every single game. Their quarterback, uber talented, tight end position really deep. If they have a legit number 1 top flight wideout, that's what they've been missing in recent seasons. That's the separating factor between the Nittany Lions and the Ohio States of the world, the Oregons of the world, the squads who we know can put 50 on the board in the blink of an eye. Penn State can get into that conversation if you see the fully varnished version, the high ceiling version of Julian Fleming.
Question, though, can having a number 1 wideout, okay, I like that. Is that your answer? That's your pensive face that you're going to give? You're going to answer.
Yes,
Audrey was just talking about how maybe taking some more risks in the play calling can help lead this Penn State team to getting more of those explosive plays this offense was lacking. Can having a number one wideout impact that, and how much?
I believe it depends on how much faith and confidence they end up storing into Julian Fleming. Because if they feel like he's a guy who can go up and get it. I was referencing earlier where Will Howard needs to sort of throw caution to the wind at times. Drew Allard, just like Audrey was talking to you about, he could benefit from some of that mentality, just to give your playmakers an opportunity to go up and get it. I mean, Ty Warren can be that guy as a tight end also, but for Fleming, because he's the new piece, because he's the piece who's had the highest profile in recruiting, he's certainly what I've got my eyes trained on. That the harsh glare of expectation, in my opinion, will be on Fleming to see if he can be the outside playmaker that takes things to another level. I hope those opportunities are there in game action and just let him go out and prove it. He's got a big, formidable body. He has shown at times the ability to do that. Let's see if he can make it happen.
This is my pensive face. I'm going to give it back to you. Okay,
yeah,
all right. The wheels are turning. I like the points you make, Anthony.
Like an emoticon.
Right, yes, exactly. We're going to give you a break.
I know the kids call them
up.
emojis. I'm still an emoticon guy myself.
Wait, what is an emoticon now? You're
it's an old school emoji. I think like the first emoji was known as an emoticon. I could be wrong. Okay. Somebody web search.
Is that back in the AOL days, or how far back are we talking?
We're talking dial-up. Way back when.